Now he's doing.
Okay.
Now,
Good morning. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for March 9th, 2017 to order. If you would, please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to state for the record that Mr. Horgan is not present, so I haven't heard that he wasn't going to be here, so hopefully he'll show up shortly. Okay. Ms. Knapp, are there any changes to the agenda?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. There is one, PDR 1521ZG, Novimo Construction, Inc. There is an additional public comment letter attached, and this concludes the changes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Schenk, is there anything from the County Attorney's Office?
No comments.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the next order of business. We have the minutes from the prior 2 months, January 12th and February 9th. The chair will entertain a motion if there are no revisions.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 12th and February 9th of 2017.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ron, second. We're going to call, is there any discussion? Okay, the chair will call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, the chair votes aye. It passes 6-0 with Mr. Horgan absent. The next item on the agenda is citizen comments. This is the opportunity for anybody in the audience who wishes to make a statement for anything that is not on the agenda to come forward and make a statement. If you have something related to items that are on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity during those public hearings to come forward. So is there anybody who has anything that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close public comment. All right. The next item is establishing the rules for the hearing. So if you would, if you intend to speak today, if you would, please rise and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which are about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes 2 items that are presentations upon request. Before we go into those, have the commissioners had an opportunity to review those? Is there any request to hear these items before they're presented as consent agendas? Any requests to hear those? Okay. All right. Ms. Knapp, could you please read item 3 into the record?
Item number 3 is PA 1703, Ordinance 1717. This is a county-initiated map amendment, Robbins Apartments. And this is transmittal of a plan amendment providing for a county-initiated amendment to the future land use map from ROR, Retail Office Residential, and IL, Industrial Light, future land use classifications to ROR, future land use classification. Approximately 10.4 acres, and said property is located at 2303 First Street East in Bradenton.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak to this matter? This is the opportunity you would have to make comment regarding this matter. So is there anybody in the audience who wishes to make comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna close that. And Ms. Knapp, could you please read item number 4 into the record?
Item number 4 is PDR 1521ZG, Novimo Construction, Inc., Novimo rezone. This is a rezoning of approximately 1.16 acres from neighborhood commercial medium to planned development residential zoning district located on the west side of Center Road and south side of Terracea Road, commonly known as 1891 Center Road, Palmetto, with a general development plan to allow 1 lot for a single-family detached residence.
Thank you very much. Again, we're going to open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this application? Anyone at all? Okay, seeing nobody come forward, we're going to close public comment portion, and the chair will consider a motion on consent. Mr. Bauer.
Just for procedural purposes, Mr. Chair, I don't think 3 and 4 is on a consent agenda. I think they're completely separate.
I don't know, is it on consent?
On our consent, public presentations upon request.
Yeah. So, for clarification, I believe that is consent. The way it's listed, it's a little confusing, so that is clear. Ms. Knapp, they are on consent?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
They are?
Yes, they are consent. So, if there would have been a presentation, we would have had to pull them out of consent, so. Okay, any additional comments or concerns on this item?
On number 4, it says Palmetto. Isn't it actually Terracea? Or is that just anything north of the river called Palmetto?
I don't know if that's, I don't know how that came about.
This is Palmetto.
Mr. DeLeslin, what do you see? Is it in the application? Is that where you see it?
No, is when she read it, it says
Oh.
Center Road Palmetto.
Okay.
The actual address would be a Terracea address.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes any difference
I don't know,
right now.
Ms. Knapp, is that?
Well, I'm not sure if the case manager, Stephanie, has the file in front of her. I'm working with just what's in front of me to see if the address should be correct. The question will be the town.
So we'll reference this by address, and prior to getting it in front of the board, we'll make a clarification.
Sure.
So with that matter being clarified, again, the chair will consider a motion on consent.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. DeLeslin.
Recommend the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Mr. DeLeslin. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horgan. Any discussion on this? The chair is going to call this to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the advertised public hearings. The first item on the agenda is item number 5. Ms. Knapp, could you please read that into the agenda, into the record?
Item number 5 is PDC 1528ZP. This is Artis Wisenet Family Racetrack. This is a rezone of approximately 2.27 acres on the northwest corner of US 301 and Ellington Gillette Road at 3514 and 3600 US 31 North Ellington, from neighborhood commercial medium to planned development commercial zoning district, and a preliminary site plan for approximately 5,400 square feet convenience store with 8 gas pumps, 6 fueling stations, and approximately 8,700 square foot dispenser canopy area.
Thank you, Ms. Knapp. Have there been any ex parte communications, Mr. Rutledge?
Yes, sir. So this morning on the way in, I was talking to a gentleman that worked with me that does work for Racetrack. He asked me about the 301 area, if I liked it. I said I did like it. Had worked up there on some other projects. He said, well, don't be late for your meeting. And that's when I realized that this was coming before us. We're going to discuss the location. I have no interest in it, but I did have that conversation kind of offhandedly this morning, so.
Thank you. Ms. Schenk, is that problematic?
No, I asked Mr. Rudge to disclose it.
Okay, so we have a disclosure, and that's sufficient to protect the process. Have there been any other ex parte communications? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to introduction by staff.
Good morning, Rosina Leider by the staff. Here represented the applicant is Mr. Mark Barnaby. If after his presentation you would like a full presentation, I'm ready, or I'm ready to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barnaby, if you would, please. We have the applicant's presentation.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be here. I'm Mark Barnaby. and
Could
I
we
have-
hold off? I think we have some,
Not- Oh, that's not good.
we don't want to miss any of your lovely speaking
better now?
voice.
All right. Oh, that is better. I am Mark Barnaby, and I still have been sworn. glad we're all here on this wonderful March day. I'm going to try to keep this short because I'm sure you've got better things to do, and hopefully maybe go to a ball game later on today. I've got to work, but hopefully somebody will get that opportunity. With me today, I'm here on behalf of Racetrack Petroleum. With me today are Tom Hardy and Sarah McGowan of Racetrack, Matt Campo of Campo Engineering, and Racetrack is here requesting a rezone of a preliminary site plan for a racetrack facility at the northwest corner of US 301 and Elton Gillette Road. The site, let me kind of quickly go through some of the facts about the site, and by the way, we like the Ellington area as well. This is the location of the northwest corner, Ellington Gillette and US 301. As you know, 301 is a 4-lane road. Ellington Gillette is about to be widened in that area, and this is an appropriate location. The comp plan designation for the site is Res 9, but as you know, this is at the intersection of two collector roads, and therefore commercial is an appropriate designation for the site. The site is right now a bank site surrounded by a shopping center. I'll talk about that in a little more detail in just a few minutes. This is the current zoning on the site. It is NCM. And the real reason that we're here today is just because we've got because of the odd shape of the site, we've actually consolidated 3 pieces of property. The odd shape of the site makes it a little difficult to meet all the setbacks. That's the primary reason we're asking for planned development commercial. I'm going to try something a little bit different. When I was looking at this, I thought, hey, this might actually work. We'll see if it works. Let me pull out just a little bit. Okay, that's good. Thank you. On the right side is the current site for the property. As you can see, this is Ellington Gillette. This is US 301 to the south. We have commercial abutting on most sides of this property. There's a couple houses here, but as you'll see in a second, the main portion of the project is not facing those houses. There is a shopping center to the rear, and as you can see in this corner here, we have a driveway, and so the property does not really impact any property significantly. Here's the site plan for the property. As you can see, we've got the racetrack market. It's just under 6,000 square feet. We have 16 fueling stations here, which is one of the smaller facilities we have in the county. And we tie into the driveway to the north, which is the existing shopping center driveway. I can go into a lot more detail if you want. This site, we believe, is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And land development code. It is also, we have a number of stipulations that we've reviewed, and we don't have real problems with those. We have a question about one of them. We'll get that resolved before we get to the Board of County Commissioners. That's on the stormwater, and it's really a question of whether or not it applies or not. And other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Rutledge?
Yeah, I've been up here, and I guess one of the things is traffic, obviously. Everybody's always concerned about traffic. So this access point into the shopping centers, not at the current high quality that most of the stuff we have in the county is, right? So my question is, in looking at this, have you enhanced that or just mitigated that? Because obviously we've got the garden place to the other side of this. And so when I look at this, I'm not sure that it's spoken, or I'm curious how you spoke to the shopping center behind it and the other neighbor to the north, because these are all commercial users.
Correct.
And how you design that affects all them. You're buying this, but it has purpose for the rest. You have cross easements, and have you had these discussions with all your neighbors how this is going to work?
Yes, we've worked with the neighbors to the north. Obviously, we expect a lot of our traffic to come in off of 301. We were required to put in a deceleration lane off of US 301. We have also looked at what the existing connection here on the north side and how that's going to tie in. There is a median in here that will be added that will prevent having stacking issues on that area. And so we have looked at that issue. We don't expect a major problem for that site.
Mr. Rutledge, any additional questions?
I'm just curious, when you come out, it seems like there's a single lane access, then it kind of balloons out. I'm not a traffic guy, but I'm just curious, is that the optimum design? I'm just curious why there's not a 2-lane there.
What, up in this area here?
Yeah, just the exit out.
Right.
From the shopping center, go to the left side of your drawing there. Left side of your drawing. Yeah, that's left, or my left, anyways, and you come out there, see, it seems one lane, it balloons to 2 lanes. I'm just
Right.
curious if that's the most effective design, it's just a question, I don't know. Engineers?
Matt Kimpo with Kimpo Engineering. I'll offer some more information to help you out with that question.
Mr. Kimpo, you've been sworn?
I have been sworn, thank you.
Thank you.
So, just a few pieces of information. Currently, that access point you're referring to, as you described, it looks like it's kind of something that people forgot. Like it's not quite as functional as it needs to be. With what we worked at with staff, we actually have moved this access. When I say the access point, one point here, the actual access point internally, we worked with staff to move that back further away from Gillette to give more throat depth. We have run our auto turn exhibits for truck delivery type level vehicles. Currently, that connection is actually closer to Gillette, so that's a pretty tight turn. So that's one of the things we did. We did push it back. The median itself would be modified. When I say median, it's probably more striping would be modified to accommodate the different movements that you've described. So we specifically with staff, we did get some comments about that item, and we made those adjustments to improve that connection. So.
And obviously, staff is recommending, right? Am I allowed
Well-
to speak to someone else? No, sorry. That's helpful, thanks.
I have a additional question regarding the roadway network and traffic in general. Is Ellington Gillette a state road?
No.
Okay.
That is a county road. And I think as Mr. Barnaby mentioned, just again through our exercises with staff, we're adding the decel on 301 right into the site.
All right.
Will be, and it's actually partly through some roadway improvements that are coming, there'll be a left in to this site as well as a southbound right adjustment that'll be made again to address the traffic. There was a traffic analysis completed and submitted to staff as well with the
The
project.
reason I ask is there's a note in the construction plans that say Ellington Gillette Road, State Road 683. Is that?
My guess that's probably from the survey carryover, but I'm pretty certain that's a county road. I know for a fact that the county has some improvement plans for that particular corridor, and so that may have been a carryover from the actual surveyor when they may put that together.
Okay. And I do see another note that references existing county right-of-way in that general area. I'm talking about on Ellington Gillette.
Right, there's been, the right-of-way has been previously acquired. If you actually look at our site plan, you can see that there's quite a bit, you can actually see the pavement in this aerial that's in the current site, and so this is all acquired right-of-way. And that's occurred and been planned for.
Okay. And in the plans also, we see a reflection of the proposed, I guess the presumed edge of pavement for the future connection or expansion of Ellington Gillette.
Right, in the plans you have, we did do a double overlay and worked with staff to show what the current and future condition is to make sure we accommodated both.
Okay.
So it may be hard to see in the graphics, but that is in the, one of the drawings that was provided to the county.
Were there any discussions with county staff regarding the future expansion of Ellington Gillette to maybe modify access to the entrance Mr. Rutledge was asking about?
Well, the one modification to the entrance, and as I described at the entrance, it's more of a southbound taper that occurs as you approach the entrance. That was one of the improvements that were made. And that is probably the only improvement, other than what we are proposing with increasing the throat depth and sliding that current access point, which is, again, I'm drawing with my pen right about there, pushing that back. So that's kind of on us as
Yeah.
part of this project.
Okay, I mean, in the future, was there discussion about limiting access, left turns only in the right?
Not at that access connection.
Okay.
Originally, the original proposal actually had an additional driveway, which has been removed. So, we've kind of worked through these iterations of different access points and whittled down to what you see today.
And again, back to the reference of DOT, this is a county improvement. It's not going to require any coordination with DOT. So what we see here is likely to be constructed.
Right, and I believe that improvement, and staff can comment, I believe they have full plans. I think they are from discussions like in some additional right-of-way acquisition. So it's, that particular project for the county is fairly far down the road.
Okay, thank you. And then let's move along 301. There's a portion of property south of the application identified property that is identified as existing county right-of-way. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's a strip of land It's right here between the blue and where you can see the sidewalk. That was a portion of land that was acquired by the county at one point.
Okay.
It's actually been, there's a process which Mark can speak to further to reacquire that back. That's actually going to accommodate the D-cell lane that would be going in.
Okay.
And so that extra right-of-way kind of helped give the property a little more depth, helped our buffers, and also then allows for that turn lane to go in.
Okay, all right. I was wondering what was going to happen with that, so, okay. Are there any additional questions, Mr. Bauer?
Talk to me a little bit about this property to the north, the most northern. Yeah, this looks like a house.
I don't believe so. There are houses here. I believe that's a commercial.
Yeah, I believe, I would have to look, but I believe it's like a,
Garden Center.
yeah, exactly. It's a
So it's not a house.
It's a business.
That somebody's
Yeah.
living in.
Yeah, right, right.
My
It's,
concern was, how nice would it be to live in that house and you have all these lights coming out of this property looking at you every evening?
yeah, it's odd, even when you go out there, but it's an actual business that's operating there, so.
As you can see, it's got a pretty large, if it's a house, and I don't think it is, I believe it is a nursery. You've got a pretty big parking lot right in the front of the house, so.
I don't disagree. I have no idea, but I appreciate it. I figured if they had a concern, they would be here, but I had to still ask the question.
That's a good question. You know, oddly enough, I've looked at all of these buildings, but I don't recall that. I probably have a picture somewhere.
I've been in there. It's a garden center. They had farming on the south side. They were doing some garden work.
Mark, this is the
They
garden
had
center.
organic
And it's
stuff.
part of the Arundel subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
And one last question.
I thought it
To the
was.
southwest there, where you had your, no, go to your left, southwest
Southwest,
property. Yeah, right there. What
Right
is
there.
that right there?
that's a bank,
That is a bank.
yes.
So I presume there's really no reason to tie in, like be able to go through the bank and through the gas station? No real reason? That makes sense?
I believe so, and actually, I think that one property is actually not one of the, I'm going to say the, part of the original shopping center. It's actually, I don't believe, tied to some of the cross-access documents. Right, yeah. So even if they wanted to, there's not an existing agreement that would even allow them to do that. But I agree also that it's a bank, and it's probably not giving the two types of uses, the best two types to connect with a cross-connection, so.
Thank you.
Sure, anytime.
Mr. Rutledge?
No, Mr. Horgan, please. So I had a question. That was one of my questions. So obviously, this was some kind of development at one point. Were these components that you now kind of are capturing in this, were they part of the REA for the shopping center? They have obligations with the shopping center for fees, drainage,
There are
access?
ties, yes, with access and drainage, but they were separate. So they weren't,
There's not an REA that encompasses all of them?
no.
So my question really leads then to drainage. Were these not part of the drainage plan for the shopping center, and so you're accommodating all that on your site?
That's actually an interesting question, and.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, no, because it's one of the ones that we found is kind of unusual. This shopping center was permitted in late 70s, early 80s, when DEP did the permitting. Interesting part is that DEP destroys all the records, and they don't even have records of us anymore. But we have,
I do the same thing.
so we have some old drawings that show that it was tied to the stormwater for the shopping center. But because we don't have any historical documents to show what it was designed for, we're treating our site as if it has to stand alone. So, but even though we know that shopping center likely has some capacity for this, we can't prove
So-
what that is.
So my thought was, when I look at that, it looks like it adds the green space back for all your retention. So I was just curious, what's your coverage ratio? Do you know?
We have open space of 23%,
Okay. What's our
floor
requirement?
area ratio of,
Requires 20, and the floor area ratio that are proposed is 0.15, and the maximum allowed is 0.23.
We'll get clarification during
sorry.
staff report.
and of course, the .15 is well below the maximum we could have on the site, and the 23% open space is above what we're required to have.
Interesting.
Okay. Mr. Horgan, yes.
This might be for Mr. Davis.
Well, if it's questions for staff, let's wait until staff makes their presentation. We'll get input from them, and, but if there are no additional questions for the applicant, we can actually get staff up here. So any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, could we get the,
Come late.
I thought the staff,
no, I'm trying to avoid having staff testify during the applicant's presentation. So,
But I wasn't paying attention.
Again, Rosina Lider, would you like a full presentation, or would you have
I have a
questions?
question.
I guess just questions for staff. So if there are any specific questions, let's go ahead and present them to staff. If it warrants any additional presentation, we'll do that. So, Mr. Horgan.
My only question was, what is the timing of any improvements to Ellington Gillette?
Mr. Clark is here to lend his,
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark Davis.
Thank you. First, I arrived late, so I need to be sworn in.
You're going to have to stay late. If anybody else wishes to speak today, if you would, please rise.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to the board will be truthful and accurate?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the record, Clark Davis, Transportation Planning Division Manager, and I have now been sworn in. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but the Ellington Gillette at US 301 intersection improvements that the applicant was discussing during their presentation are fully funded in our capital improvement program. I believe designed to be substantially complete, and there's some acquisition yet to be done on the east side of the road. So when they complete that, they should be ready to go. But I don't have enough information with me today to put a timeline on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? Anything? Okay. Thank you. All right, I guess we'll move on to the public comment portion. So if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this item, if you would, please come forward. Okay. Once, twice. Okay, we're going to close public comment, and we're going to move on to discussions. Is there any additional discussion, clarification required by the board?
I like the idea, honestly, of having adequate drainage. I know we have their standards and all that, but to the extent that they consolidate these pieces and give it plenty of drainage, to me is a real plus, especially in these areas where they're older and we don't have systematized programs. You know, the old 70s shopping centers, having built several of those, maybe don't have all the capacity they need, so.
Thank you. And to that end, a question to Mr. Gerstenberger. This project, as was mentioned, was originally permitted in the 70s, which it's likely that it wasn't required to meet state water quality standards. A new application that comes in, it's going to have to meet the pre-post analysis, and we're going to include state water quality. Is that correct?
For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department, I have been sworn. Mr. Chair, that is correct. The project itself, as far as the stormwater component, would meet present-day water quality and attenuation requirements for this project through the county and through Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for staff or discussion?
That's
I'm
good,
sorry.
right? Right, simple, it's good.
Commissioner Rutledge, comparatively, yes, that is better than the 1970 standards that were in place at the time. I would also note that the project itself would be connecting their proposed stormwater facilities into the drainage system associated with the shopping center. So beneficial, yes, it would be as far as the attenuation and the water quality that is provided with the proposed development.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
Good.
So, good. Anything else? Okay, we're going to move on to applicant rebuttal. Nothing. Staff, any follow-up?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I did have a few comments I wanted to make before the
Please,
vote.
please.
It was alluded to in the presentation that the county owns some of the property to the south on 301, and that property is under contract to be sold to the applicant. So it's an unusual situation. Mr. Barnaby represents actually the county and the applicant in this project. But I just wanted to clarify that in the contract for selling the property, it clearly states that nothing contained in the contract requires the seller, the planning commission, or the board to approve the rezoning and preliminary site plan application, and that review, approval, or denial of the rezone and preliminary site plan application are performed in accordance with Florida law, Miami County Code of Ordinances, and Miami County Land Development Code. And the second comment is that the seller is a corporation which Commissioner Trace has a legal interest in, and she's to be advised to abstain from voting at the board level. So this project, I'm just stating for the record, is being reviewed the same as any other project by staff, the Planning Commission, and the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any questions regarding that information? Okay, if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll make a motion based upon the staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, and finding the request to be consistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and the Manatee County Land Development Code as conditioned herein. I move to recommend adoption of the Manatee County Zoning Ordinance PDC 15-28 ZP, approval of the preliminary site plan with stipulations A1 through A6, B1, B2, C1, and D1 through D4, adoption of the findings for specific approval and granting specific approval of alternatives to the Land Development Code, Section 531.51.C, reduction of the required 25-foot setback from all property lines for service station and gas pumps, and 701.3.C, location of the required foundation landscaping within the roadway buffer, as recommended by the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. DeLesline, second. Is there any discussion or deliberation? Seeing none, the chair is going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. The motion passes 7-0. So, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is item number 6. Ms. Knapp, are we going to hear these two items together? They're related, are they not?
Yes, I'm going to open two into the record, read two into the record at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much. If you would, please, item number 6 into the record.
Item number 6 is ordinance 1707, Sarasota Bradenton Airport DRI number 15. This is an amended and restated development order pursuant to Chapter 380, which is Florida statute for the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport of Regional Impact, to approve changes to map H and the development order with its companion ordinance, which is number 7, PDMU 9907 GR6, Sarasota Manatee Airport. And this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance and general development plan to allow a personal wireless service facility in the form of a 140-foot tall monopole type communication tower in out parcel 3. Deduct 900 square feet from the previously approved office use total of 15,000 square feet in out parcel 3. And update table 3 to combine phases 1 and 2 of the development, thereby resulting in one phase. Sarasota Bradenton International Airport is bordered by US 41 to the west, Hellevass Road to the north, 15th Street east, and University Parkway to the south, and is zoned planned development mixed use airport overlay district.
Thank you, Ms. Knapp. And also, could you please read item number 7 into the record?
That was.
Oh,
I
I'm
read
sorry.
both of them back to back.
I must have missed that. So.
It's fast.
Yeah. Do you want to read them again? All right.
Play that back.
All right, thank you very much. Again, for the record, have there been any ex parte communications related to either of these applications? Mr. Rutledge, you talked to anybody this morning?
I say nothing.
All right, thank you very much. No ex parte communications. We're going to move on to introduction by staff. Mr. Solomon, if you would, please.
Yes, my name is Barney Salmon for staff. I have been sworn. Today we have here Paul Rosman and co-applicant Dan Bailey and some support staff to present for the cell tower.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bailey, if you would, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Dan Bailey. I have been sworn. I'm with the Williams Parker Law Firm in Sarasota, and I serve as counsel for the Sarasota Manatee Airport Authority. With me today is Mr. Paul Roseman of Main Site LLC. Paul, if you can acknowledge her, who is the lessee of the airport in connection with this proposed personal wireless service facility. Had to kind of learn how to say that in one mouthful. And also Mr. Rick Piccolo, who is the CEO of the airport and has been for the past 21 years. Additionally, we have Santiago Torres, who is a Verizon radio frequency engineer, to address any questions you may have in his area of expertise. I want to first of all offer my thanks to Barney Salmon and to Nicole Knapp for kind of being our guide on the side in this matter. It's turned out to be a little bit more complicated than we realized, but I think the county does have a very good process for reviewing these types of facilities. I want to provide just a little context initially. We first learned of a desire on the part of Mr. Roseman to place a tower in this general neighborhood when we learned that there was one proposed about 900 feet north of this location on property not owned by the Airport Authority, but immediately adjacent to the Airport Authority. It's a self-storage facility called Airport Mini Storage. And show you. Okay, that location was right here. The site in question is down here. It looked like a fairly harmless location because it is not in the glide path of the fixed air, of any of the runways in terms of fixed wing aircraft. But as it turned out, the helicopters do loop in that particular direction. And we have kind of an understanding with the neighborhood to the west that we basically have adjusted that flight pattern. The one that we presently use is one that was done in consensus with the neighborhood years ago. And if that tower had been placed there, that flight pattern would have had to be changed, and it would have put helicopters over a lot of those residential areas over to the west. To add to that, the tower at that location by the mini storage facility, because it's not in a planned development, on a planned development site, because it's not on a DRI site, it could be processed administratively and would not even require coming before a board for discretionary approvals. And so that was a bit of a concern to us. So we approached Mr. Roseman. It turned out, I had forgotten, I had represented him about 20 years ago in connection with a similar facility down in Sarasota County. And so we got reconnected and introduced him to Mr. Piccolo, and they were able to work out an arrangement where we actually brought him onto the airport at a site that would be more suitable for the airport and all of its uses. Mr. Roseman has a commitment from Verizon. I say commitment, it's commitment as much as they can make without the property having been approved zoning-wise, but beyond that, it also will allow a co-location with 2 more carriers whenever they want to come. So it is intended to enhance wireless service in that particular area. As you know, it's a very high-volume traffic area. You have USF, you have New College, you have the airport, so there's always a need for any enhancement would certainly be welcome to all of those users. So a lease was entered into, and it's for a total of 30 years, 5 years in increments of 5 years. And the parcel selected was the one I pointed to just a moment ago, which is at the south end of this out parcel 3. This is out parcel 3, about a 7-acre parcel. Out parcel that was approved as part of the original DRI approval and as part of the planned mixed-use development approval. The site will occupy, it's about 3,000 square feet, but the actual improvements will occupy only about 900 square feet. And it is adjacent to the new air traffic control tower that's going up at this location. And that tower is about 145 feet. So they'll be sort of clustered together. This proposed cell tower will not obstruct the view of that from that air traffic control tower because it's oriented more or less north and in the northerly direction, but away from, not in the direction where this tower would be located. It does require, well, let me back up a moment. On the out parcel 3, there were originally 3 kinds of uses approved. A 15,000 square foot office, a 3,000 square foot fast food, a 7,000 square foot quality restaurant, and as you can see, none of those improvements have been made. What we propose to do is take 900 feet away from that 15,000 square foot office, and that reduces that office space to 14,100. And, but it does require approval of amendment to our map H on our DRI. And it does require approval of the amendment to the general development plan on the PDMU. And ironically, it could, otherwise it would be approved by administratively and not have to bother you with this. But because we are a DRI, because we have a general development plan, it has to, these kind of facilities do have to come back through that process because this facility was not identified in either of those approvals previously on the graphics, on the maps. I'd like to, and also we're asking to shift these improvements for out parcel 3 from phase 1 to phase 2. We had taken advantage of a couple of legislative extensions during the recession period. You probably read about the recession in the paper. We had a recession a few years ago, and that afforded us the opportunity to take advantage of some extensions granted by the legislature, so it moved our phasing of some of our various improvements, and they were not reflected in our current development order, so we're shifting those to conform with what the present expiration dates are, but we're also shifting the phase 1 improvements, which this improvement would fall in, which would have expired a couple of months ago, actually. We're going to fast forward that to a year beyond that, which would be December of 2017. That gives us the opportunity to go ahead and get this tower approved and hopefully erected. I would direct your attention to the PDMU staff report. It's very comprehensive. It identifies the various comprehensive plan policies that come into play. They are listed on pages 35 through 38, and they're analyzed on pages 29 and 33. I won't go through those in detail, but there has been a complete analysis there. But I would also direct you to the various standards that are contained in your land development regulations, section 531.37, and that analysis appears on pages 14 through 29 of the PDMU staff report. And they involve, just kind of going through a couple of them, we were required to provide a landscape screening that would be on the west and on the north of some 10 feet. It is found to be compatible with the surroundings because it's mostly industrial, commercial, and of course the airport. There are no sensitive areas around it. There is a siting methodology narrative that's been provided by Mr. Roseman that's also in your package, showing about his search for an appropriate location and how he focused on this particular one. As I mentioned, it would enhance cellular service in the area. It's also compliant with the matrix for siting locational preferences, which are mentioned on page 16 of your staff report. The closest similar kind of facility is about a little bit less than 2 miles to the east. The closest residential use in the staff report is indicated at 2,000 feet. I thought it was a little bit closer than that, but the point is it is some considerable distance away. There's a fall-down analysis performed by Robert Bacon, professional engineer, showing that the fall-down radius is less than 50 feet, and that letter is in your file also. And additionally, there's been an irrevocable license to enter real property executed, which is required by your code. Access to the site will be from the north, from the road that comes into Dolphin Aviation. So access would be down this way. It's a rare case where they have to access it. There's a little bit of maintenance that takes place over a period of time, but not very often. It will be unmanned. There's no need for parking. There's an indication in your staff report that it would be required to connect to Manatee County Utilities, but I think Barney may address that issue. I don't think because we're not going to have any running water or any bathroom or anything on the facilities. That will not be necessary. It will be required to go through final site plan approval. And you see in your file also an FAA letter of no objection. They made reference to a need to ascertain whether lighting would be required, but because the site does not, because the tower will not exceed 200 feet, that will not be required. There would be no associated antenna on top of this facility that would extend it up higher than what we've indicated. It will comply with FCC rules and guidelines regarding human exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields. It will not interfere with any of the radio communications of, for example, the airport's police department or the airport's fire department. In fact, it will enhance that service instead of interfering with it. The nearest overhead power lines are 260 feet away, and as I've indicated, the fall zone radius is only 50 feet. There's been a demonstration that there are no sites sufficient or suitable within the so-called preferred zone, which is indicated in your code, table 5.1. And as I've indicated, this will accommodate up to 3 carriers. One has already indicated a willingness to come aboard. So we have experts here to answer any questions you might have. That will conclude my official remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. You mentioned that there was an extension of authorizations. Are these extensions reflected in these?
Well, we're not actually asking for them, but while you're updating it, we already have letters confirming that they have been granted.
Right.
But just to make the existing development order conform to those that have been granted, they're being put in here. But we are asking for an extension for the phase 1 on this out parcel from phase 1 to phase 2. That part is a part of the extension request. The other part are perfunctory because they've already been granted.
Right, but the new dates are
But
reflected.
they are reflected, they're accurately reflected in here.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. And there was a mention that it would go through the FSP process if approved today. Is this required to go through construction plan review? Or maybe
Yes, it
that's
is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any additional questions for the applicant? Mr. Bauer?
Let's talk about the location a little bit. You said something about, at the very end, simply, there is no other location that we can put this tower?
Right.
Can you?
Well, you have a requirement that there be an analysis of other locations that may be suitable and available. And there is in your packet a siting methodology narrative by Mr. Roseman that discusses.
Can you summarize that?
I better let him come up and do that, I guess.
All right, thank you. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Paul Roseman. I'm with Mainside, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the ordinance, it requires that we submit a list of any available towers that are in a particular location surrounding yours. So we've submitted that list of towers, and as Mr. Bailey mentioned earlier, every facility is about 2 miles away from this particular facility. Therefore, we're in the middle of 3 separate towers that surround us, but we need to provide coverage right in this location. So there are no towers or buildings adequate to give us the opportunity to put antennas at this location.
Mr. Bauer?
So, this property that the tower is suggested to go on, is it separate from the airport? I noticed that you're the tenant, so are you effectively leasing this property from the airport?
Yes, sir. He's leasing it on a up to 30-year lease. A copy of that is in your report as well.
So,
Yes. So the airport is the fee simple owner and is a co-applicant.
right, so here's where I'm going with this, okay? I don't have a problem with the cell tower, but what I'm having a little difficulty doing is understanding what might be appropriate, because this tower is going to go literally right next to US 41 in an area that has struggled for years to really build itself back up and become a major part of the Braden and Sarasota corridor. Basically, it's just simply it's gone down instead of coming up and being built up. And then you talk about, and something I'll ask for staff is this whole, how will we grow? And they want all these walkable streets and all these great things, especially for US 41. So here we are proposing to put a tower literally inside of 100 foot of US 41. It's kind of an eyesore the way I think of it and see it. So this is where I'm going right now. Not that, again, a cell tower is a bad idea, okay? I'm just thinking from a perspective of a long-term aspect. What does this look like on US 41? How does the county manage the appearance on all these other things in terms of their long-term growth perspective? And weigh that versus how much the tenant's going to be paid for putting the cell tower in on a property that has not been able to grow in any other fashion since 2008, 2009. So there are all those costs that go into it. I understand that. So my main point right now is eyesore, US 41, in an area that has struggled to rebuild itself.
Okay, let me address that. As I mentioned earlier, this tower was going to go right here, without the necessity of coming to this board for any approval at all. All they had to do was comply with the cookbook, meet the standards. It was about to be approved before we rescued it and moved it down to what we deemed to be a more suitable location adjacent to a 140-foot tower right here. It's not shown on this plan, but there's a tower there now, the FAA tower, the new tower.
Yeah, the new tower.
So
Understand.
it's basically clustering towers together instead of scattering it up and down the trail. And it's pulled farther away from the residential neighborhood that is over to the west. This side here was due west of several residential neighbors.
When you say rescued, what do you mean
So
by
we-
rescued in terms of,
Well, it was going to be sited here.
right?
Had we not intervened and asked them to move it to a better location, a location further away from the residential area, more down here where all the industrial activity is taking place, and with a compatible tower next door to it, so you kind of cluster them together so you don't, as I say, scatter them up and down the trail. You want to say something? Yeah.
See, and no disrespect, but in terms of rescuing, I would almost think that the tower, several hundred feet off of US 41 by the mini storage, might actually look a whole lot better, be less noticeable than sitting closer to US 41.
Morning, Mr. Flowers. My name's Rick Piccolo. I'm the president and CEO of the airport, and I've been sworn.
Thank you.
When Dan uses the term rescued, it actually was after a meeting with the neighborhood association there. Where this location is here, that was original, is a path that helicopters use presently to depart towards the beaches and keeps them away from the neighborhood. If that tower, when we found out that the tower would be built there, it would necessitate adjusting the helicopter path, and we have a very large helicopter school there, and putting all that traffic over the neighborhood. So we went to Mr. Roseman and said, here's our problem, and we realized that you could build this thing tomorrow without having to go through all the stuff that we're going through now and all the efforts that we have to make. But we implored them to work with us to try and find a location that met their needs and met our needs and would take care of the neighborhood. By having it right where the new tower is here, and his location is there, you're clustering, the new tower is 145 feet high, so you're clustering all those high structures there. And more importantly, we're addressing the needs of the neighborhood when trying to be good neighbors. So we thought it was a win-win for everyone, and actually delayed Mr. Roseman by at least 6 months in being able to move forward. So that's what we mean by rescued this program. It really helped the neighborhood, and that was our concern.
And all those things make sense. So part of, I guess, of what I'm wondering is, with all the property on the airport, why not somewhere else on the property that is like away from, say, the main road, US 41, something like that? Maybe towards Televast or
Well, then you get into the approach of the runway, and you can't build that structure there. So this is one that allows us to build it. On Talavas, you're getting into the approaches of the runway, and I don't have any kind of picture to show you right now. Whereas on US 41, you're to the side of the runway, so you can go up higher quicker than you can at the end of the runway.
Okay.
All right, and those are the reasons for it.
Okay.
Mr. Horgan.
Do we have a photograph of what this tower is going to look like?
There's a drawing.
You mean an elevation?
Yeah, an elevation, please.
This is provided by the applicant. This is basically what you're having.
Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry.
Put a flag on it.
Mr. Horgan, any additional question?
As far as I'm concerned, this is probably the least controversial cell tower in the
Yeah.
county.
I pictured a oil tower kind of thing in my head.
It's like an electrical pole type.
Yeah.
One picture is worth 1,000 words, though.
Should have put that up first.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes, sir.
this is a DRI, so one of the things that I think typically are presented with regard to DRIs are land uses. The fact that this is an airport DRI, does it limit the uses of the land that are within that DRI?
Well, the DRI had a whole menu of uses. They were mixed use, as the zoning designation suggests. And we thought, because of its proximity to the 41, that commercial was an appropriate use over there. It's not, it wasn't needed for any of the activities you normally associate with the airfield itself. It didn't need, you know, I guess it has potential access to the airfield because it butts up against Dolphin Aviation's leasehold. But it felt like the highest and best use would probably be commercial. That decision was made well over 20 years ago. And it could be changed, but I think that's probably still the appropriate land use for this out parcel. And hopefully someday it'll bear fruit.
Right, and that was kind of where I was leading. It's a 7-acre parcel. I'm not really sure the footprint of the cell tower. I know there are clear zones.
It's only the footprint of the cell tower. The parcel itself is about 3,400 square feet, somewhere along there, but the site of the actual tower and the equipment room is about 900 feet.
Right, so the 7-acre parcel, a portion of it is going to be utilized for the cell tower, but there's still the opportunity to have
Yes, sir.
something
Yeah,
that would.
In fact, you'll see here in your packet, if I can get, there we go. I've
It's item 4.
highlighted in yellow the actual location for the 900 feet, the 900-foot area, square foot area. And the other uses at the top are just conceptual of what
Well,
some of the commercial uses.
Exactly where I was going. There's still opportunity to do something
Yes, sir.
adjacent to 41 that would potentially provide some economic benefit to the
That's our
site,
prayer.
so
Yes, sir.
commercial, whatever it might be. That's one representation, but the fact that you have a cell tower on the portion of the site, it still doesn't take the entire site out of.
We've taken advantage of, we selected the best site on this where it didn't mess up things too much. So it enables you to still carry out your vision of putting commercial.
Triangle's pretty hard to deal with.
Yes,
It's
sir.
pretty narrow, so,
Right.
okay, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification that there was still an opportunity in the
Yes, sir.
future to provide something else on the remainder of the site that would potentially be an economic benefit.
Absolutely.
Additional
Yes, sir.
economic benefit to the area, so, okay, thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Mr. Rutledge?
So, just so I understand, Mr. Roseman, you're leasing from the airport, and you're then releasing to a collection of users? You say Verizon, but you say other people, so could you describe that a little more clearly for me?
Thank you. Yes, Verizon is the first tenant that has committed to the tower site. So then after that, of course, our cast of characters includes T-Mobile, Sprint, and AT&T. Those are the major mobile providers in this community that we think this infrastructure will be a target for in the future. But there's no question Verizon is extremely interested in the site.
Okay, and just kind of curiosity, so if your lease expires, I didn't read the whole lease, but if your lease expires, are you required to remove this cell tower if we request it?
Yes, we are required to move it, and I think we posted a affidavit that states so.
I'm sorry, forgive me. The other thing is, the ownership interest, though, is not changing hands. It's a lease that you control.
This is a ground lease. The airport authority is the fee owner. Mr. Roseman's entity is the tenant. We'll build the tower, and I believe Verizon will just occupy a space at the top of it for their array.
My real question was, no extending REAs, obligations, other than you put that there. In other words, you say this continued uses, you have no right to then dictate the uses beyond your area of lease, correct?
That's correct. In the lease, there is a specific set of things that we can do, and that includes build a monopole tower and place radio equipment at the base.
Got it. So I'd like to say this. I think that it probably goes unnoticed, but I think we have terrific staff. I think everybody will tell you, when staff says something, it's hard for me to disagree with them. I would say that in looking at your package you put together, Mr. Piccolo, I think you guys have done a great job. I mean, I think it goes unnoticed that we don't have many problems at the airport, and you guys do complete with all the noise issues and flight patterns, all that. So I wanted to say thank you for this. I think this is the way this should be done. I've done some cell towers in the past. I think you've thought of all the things that come to mind. They're not beautiful. I mean, I don't think anybody would call them. Oh, maybe Mr. Roseman. So I think that it kind of goes in the right spot. I like that the height is consolidated. I think that's the best thing you can do. I think the way you structured it makes sense. You put it at the worst part of the property that probably would just have been nothing anyway. So I'd just like to give you my compliments on how you've done it, and I'm going to be very positively in support of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes, did you have a? Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, the next part of the hearing, thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Mr. Piccolo, thank you. We have staff presentation, Mr. Salmon.
Again, my name is Barney Salmon for staff, and I have been sworn. Thanks, Dan. Great presentation. I'll do a brief presentation, but just a kind of an overview. This is, the reason we're here is, as Dan mentioned, that there is a cell tower was not permitted in the airport DRI. So since a DRI and an associated ordinance, we had to revise both. So that's why we're here today. So, and we've added that cell tower as a use within out parcel 3. I think there's 6 out parcels, and this is the out parcel 3, which consists of 7 acres. Let me go to the presentation. Go to the next slide here. Hold on, I can do this here. Yeah, could you do that, please? Again, this is approval of personal wireless service facility. We're doing modification of table 3 to shift use approvals in phase 1 to phase 2, because phase 1 expired. That's part of the DRI. Adding 900 square feet as a use in table 3, and then some basic housekeeping with the extensions that Dan had mentioned. Okay, next one, please. Again, it's located in airport property. It is part of a DRI. It's 3,400 square feet, 60 by 60 area, and the air traffic control tower is 160 feet. I know there's been discussion as 145. I believe it's the floor height. Okay, thank you. And the proposed cell tower is 300 feet from this air traffic control tower, which I have some pictures of. So in the facts, there's no new access points. It's vacant. The closest residence is approximately 1,100 feet. There's no public utilities required, and it's unmanned. This is the aerial, and we can do another one to zoom. As Dan mentioned, it's going right. It's working. It's good. All right, it's on the very bottom corner of that triangle. Another one. And as you can see, the access road that runs east-west is what they're using. Actually, it's a drive. And keep going there. It's in the PDMU zoning district, and it's in the future land use category of ROR. The next one, please. Okay, another one. This is, you saw this earlier, this is basically what it's going to look like. Another one, please. This is looking at McDonald's, and McDonald's are taking a picture, and that's pointing to the existing air traffic control tower there now. I believe that's, I'm probably about, I'm trying to think, 300, 400, about 650 feet from the air traffic control tower. The cell tower would be closer to me, probably about, with this road right away of 150 feet and 100 feet, about 250 feet. Kind of right behind this tree there, you can see. Okay, next one. This is a zoom, so you can kind of get an idea what it looks like for McDonald's again. View east, go ahead, next one. This is their access point existing, which now serves Dolphin Aviation. Next one. This is the access drive looking north, and beyond that you can see the many warehouses that were discussed in Dan's presentation. This is the site. Basically, this is looking south. 41 is to your right. Okay. This is the tower, what it looks like, and that's looking southeast. This is east, the airport hangars. Another one. This is view west. There's a mini warehouse and hotel across the street from 41. And this is an overview of the 6 tables. As I mentioned before, I have the 6 tables below if you want to look at that, but we basically changed we basically did housekeeping, and changed the dates to reflect that what has been approved already. And I can go through this real quick. You can kind of, it's in your packet also. We can buzz through these real quick. Go ahead. You can, go ahead. You can go through those, yeah. I see strike through and underline, so we updated the dates to reflect that's currently approved. You can keep going. That's table 2. This is 3. This is where we actually, you see we added the 900 square foot personal service wireless facility, and we deducted that from the 15,000 square feet of office. So it's kind of, it's correct. 4, again, the dates have changed. Keep going, 5. And then 6, table 6. And 7. And next one. So we recommend approval with this. There is one change to the staff report, the stipulations. A-1 notes that connection to county water and sewer are required. We'd like to remove that. This will actually be, there's halide type sprayers within the mechanical units to extinguish any kind of electrical fires. They will not be using water. And there is, since it's unmanned, their sewer will not be necessary. And that pretty much concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions for staff? Mr. DeLesling.
Other than the chain link fence that goes around it, is there any landscape? or
Yes,
anything?
thank you. You're mentioning how we will grow, Commissioner Bauer. What they're doing, final site plan, and it's required to have landscaping around the cell tower. And for the walking public, it's supposed to screen that, the box and the fencing within that. So that will be, it's required within, that's part of the requirements for all cell towers. So we've had some east of town where they were landscaping. I never really understood that, but this really makes sense here because it is part of the how we will go area, and they'll have some landscaping. They have to have trees and bushes around this facility to soften that look.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna open the hearing up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward, make a comment on this application? Anybody at all? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go ahead and close the public comment portion of the hearing. Is there any additional discussions relevant? Okay. So we'll go to the staff closing comments.
None, sir.
Applicant rebuttal. Speechless. I find that hard to believe. Okay, the chair will consider a motion.
And Mr. Chair, we have to vote separately on 6, which is the motion's unchanged, and 7, is with the deletion of A1, stipulation A1.
Okay, so we'll, Chair will consider a motion for item number 6.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Horgan.
Yes, based on the staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, and the findings, and finding the request to be consistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan, the Manatee County Land Development Code, and DRI number 15, in accordance with section 380.06 Florida statutes, subject to the conditions of approval established in the development order, I move to recommend approval of ordinance number 17-07 as recommended by staff.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Delezine, second. Any discussion or deliberation? Seeing none, the chair is going to call this matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Chair will consider, entertain a motion on item number 7.
I'll make the motion.
Mr.
Chairman.
Ron.
Based on the staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, and finding the request to be consistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan, the Manatee County Land Development Code, as contained with herein, I move to recommend approval of the Manatee County zoning ordinance number PDMU-99-07G R6, approval of the general development plan stipulations, A1,
Well, that's,
sorry?
delete A1.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the motion.
It's revised.
Oh, it's revised, I'm sorry. Okay, B1 through B2, C1, D1 through D3, E1 through E2, and F1 through F2 as recommended by staff.
So we have a motion that included striking A1.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Horgan, second. Any discussion or deliberation? All right, the chair will call this matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Are there any opposing votes? Okay. Motion passes 7-0. And I believe that concludes our business today, does it not?
Amen.
So we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you very much.